the time. We cross now to Jerusalem, where Noga Tarnopolsky comes to our aid on these issues, not for the first time. And we'll zone in immediately, if we may, Noga, on these remarkable reports that Benjamin Netanyahu systematically foiled talks aimed to release Israeli hostages from Hamas captivity. What do we know?
Right. Hello, James.
Hello.
Well, actually, two simply gobsmacking, astonishing reports, basically in the last 12 hours. The first one is the one that you mentioned. And what it says is it just outlines in this chilling list every time that there was an opportunity to advance talks that would release the Israeli hostages, more than 120, still stuck in Gaza, alive or dead, and the manner in which the Prime Minister himself, sometimes illegally using classified information to which only he had access, or he and the leader of the opposition, the way he went about manipulating public opinion. I'll give you one example from this report. We're talking about a report in the newspaper Haaretz, by the way. So one report is that, for example, in one of the first sets of talks that took place after the only release plan that has ever come into being in November, about 250 some odd hostages were taken by Hamas on October 7th. And in late November, a week-long truce was put into place in which over 100 were released alive. And the next opportunity for talks was in December. And the idea of the United States, certainly, was to basically try and recreate the moment and release the remaining, however many there were at the time, 140 or so. And it describes Netanyahu using information that he had from the Israeli negotiators, about which were the Palestinian prisoners Hamas was demanding would be freed. So some murderers, convicted murderers, some people, and he using that information with very clever and nefarious manipulation to terrify the Israeli public, putting it out via media proxies of his own, information no one had access to. And it also was not true, because these are simply Hamas requests on the table. This was not a final agreement. But using this to whip up public sentiment against any deal, and also, maybe even worse, to hamper the work of his own negotiating team at that time in Paris, who were trying to move ahead and couldn't because of the political frenzy that had been whipped up in Israel. That's just one example. And this article, it outlines every single time there was a chance to advance towards a deal, how Netanyahu acted basically to keep treading water. And this is because he believes that if a deal is signed, that he will lose key members of his coalition and his government will fall.
And the detail that you describe speaks to the likely source, or is the source specified in the journalism of where this information is coming from?
It's really just kind of an earth-shattering article by Michael Hauser-Tov of Haaretz. It's very precise. It's not an assumption of Netanyahu. He has, in particular, military sources and diplomatic sources, those involved in the negotiations, detailing how the prime minister made them stumble every time. I have to tell you, James, this goes hand in hand with another report by another excellent Israeli journalist, Nadav Eyal. It came out yesterday in Israel's #1 top daily tabloid, Yediot Achronot. And here it is revealed that senior people in Netanyahu's orbit, in other words, not his private appointees, but career people. The one mentioned by name is former military attaché General Avi Gil, who just left his position about 2 months ago, I believe, that he and others reported to the Attorney General, who's Israel's top law enforcement officer, the concern and even direct reports that the office of the prime minister, in other words, his small office, his personal staff, had been tampering with the protocols of the war cabinet meetings and altering the transcripts of the top security phone calls that the prime minister had been having. Obviously, everything I'm outlining to you, if eventually proved, is completely illegal.
Yeah. What happens next?
Well,
Nice,
you know,
easy question for you, Noga.
no, but you were mentioning, I heard you speaking before the break, and you said, well, Netanyahu's legally elected, and the way that Israelis can get rid of him is to vote him out. And you're right. You're right. And yet Israelis today confront a situation which we've seen elsewhere before, in which a legally elected leader is using nefarious tactics to try and crush the system, the very system that elected him, to his own needs. Here we see a prime minister who's already under criminal indictment. He's on trial as we speak. In fact, he's scheduled to provide testimony in his own defense as of December the 2nd, as crazy as that may sound.
Yeah, it
And
does.
we see him literally doing everything, risking the lives of hostages who were taken away from their homes because they were already betrayed by the state. The state should have protected them, should have been able to protect them. So these are, I don't even know how to describe them.
No.
Triply, quadruply betrayed citizens.
And all for self-interest, all for self-protection, defined and distilled, as you've just described, by the need to keep on side some distinctly unsavoury characters, including, of course, a convicted terrorist and people whose political background speaks to not just anti-Arab, but dedicated to the occupation of currently Palestinian-held territory.